we have a state fiscal crisis, as you all know. A $10.7 billion budget deficit on a $29 billion budget. Now, by percentage, this is the worst budget deficit in America, worse than California, worse than Illinois, and we needed to take some very bold steps to deal with this. Now, we put forward a budget on March 16th with $10.7 billion in reductions in what was the proposed spending under the Corzine administration. This was not easy to do. And so I want to start off by saying that while I stand firmly behind the cuts that we proposed, please don't take my firm stance in favor of those cuts as a sense on my part that I don't know how painful they are, because they are. And everybody would love to be governor during a time when you can just give things away and make everybody your friend and make everybody happy. That's not the time that I'm getting to be governor. And so I feel an obligation to stand up and do what I think in your hearts you all know is the right thing to do, which is to get our government under control and to start to reduce the amount of money that you have to pay your government in taxes. And so there'll be a lot of debate and discussion, as there should be, over the budget between now and June 30th when the legislature must act. But I will tell you that having gone through the budget line by line, there's not a lot of alternatives. And so I'll be interested to see what they do, but there's not a lot of room to maneuver because we simply don't have the money. In fact, just this past Friday, we saw that revenues were down again for last month. They're down over 2% as to what was projected for this current fiscal year. So it continues to be a problem in New Jersey, and I know municipalities are seeing the same thing, and all of you are seeing it. So we haven't turned the corner yet in New Jersey. We have to deal responsibly with this. But if all we do is cut the budget, cut municipal aid, cut aid to school districts, and cut in every department of government, which we've done, and we don't get at the underlying problem, we're just going to be back in this spot year after year, as will all the mayors who are dealing with this problem. We need to get at the underlying problem. Municipal spending over the last 10 years has grown by 69% over the last 10 years. And property taxes, no surprise, have grown by 70% over the last 10 years. This is an unsustainable course for us to go on. And now for nearly 30 years, all of you as citizens, and me as a citizen of New Jersey, have placed in the hands of politicians, mostly politicians from Trenton, the responsibility for fixing property taxes. And every gubernatorial election since 1973, we have had folks dancing around this property tax problem, putting Band-Aids on it, rebates to people to help to lower what they pay in property taxes, increasing municipal aid, increasing aid to school districts, continuing to add on to the tax burden at every different level, at the state level and at the municipal level, and not getting at the underlying problem of what government costs us in New Jersey. We need to get at that underlying problem now because, you know what? The state can't write a check anymore to pay for all the problems. Not the same amount it used to. And so, if we can't do it, and property taxes got up 70% in 10 years, well, people in New Jersey are voting with their feet, and they're leaving. Senior citizens are leaving the homes that they raised their families in. Heartbroken because they can't afford property taxes anymore. Young couples are not being able to buy their first home, not because they can't afford the mortgage payments, but because when the mortgage payments are combined with their taxes, they can't afford the payments. And middle-class families who are suffering from 10% unemployment in New Jersey still, 9.8%, higher than the national average, highest in the region, are finding that they're going to lose their homes after they've lost their jobs because they can't pay their property taxes anymore. Every level of folks in New Jersey, from those who are very fortunate and wealthy to those who are most troubled, and everybody in between has been caught by this problem. And that's why in every poll you'll ever see, New Jerseyans say the biggest problem is property taxes. So how do we get to fix it? First and foremost, we have to impose discipline on every level of the political system. And that's why I proposed a constitutional amendment to cap property tax increases at no more than 2.5% per year. We have to impose that discipline. Because the state cannot ask of the mayors something that they're unwilling to do, fundamental fairness dictates that the other part of the constitutional amendment has to be that discretionary state spending outside debt service or aid to municipalities or school districts has to be capped at 2.5%. We can't let state government grow bigger than municipal government. We can't ask them to make sacrifices and not make them ourselves. So the cap would apply also to discretionary spending at the state level. We need to control the growth of government. We need to stop the explosion of government. And if you don't think it's going on even as we speak, consider this. In 2009, we lost 121,000 private sector jobs in New Jersey, while the municipal and school board payrolls grew by 11,300 jobs. We must have the discipline to control this. And the only thing, in my opinion, that will do it is a constitutional cap to control property taxes. But if that's all we do, then what we leave for Mayor Zimmer is an impossible situation. The idea of having to provide services to people on the local level and education under a cap without the ability to also control the underlying expenses that drive up taxes. Nearly 75% of every municipal or county budget is driven by personnel costs, by labor costs. And so we need to level the playing field in terms of the way those costs are determined. So we've also put in this toolkit collective bargaining reform. Now, collective bargaining reform with our public sector unions means I stand foursquare in favor of arbitration to resolve the disputes with our public employees who don't have the ability to strike, especially police, fire, teachers who do not have the ability to strike. We must have arbitration to be able to make sure that these things be resolved. But the arbitration system has been tilted much too far in favor of labor. So in collective bargaining reform, it would now be required that any arbitrator, when making a decision, must take into regard that 2.5% cap and can't give a benefit that's larger than that, so that the people of the state of New Jersey and the people of each municipality have to pay more and more and more every year. Arbitrators have to also acknowledge and work into their agreements how this will affect property taxes. And so if a certain award is going to make property taxes go up above that 2.5% cap, they should not be allowed to give it any longer. Municipalities should not be at the mercy of arbitrators who feel like they can spend your money without accountability for it. So we need to have collective bargaining reform. We need to have reform of the civil service system. We can't have any longer these two systems coexisting together. Civil service, which was set up in the 1800s to protect against political patronage hiring, and collective bargaining at the same time, which also now has grievance procedures to prevent against that. We should have one or the other, and candidly, I think labor is best served by collective bargaining, so we should give mayors like Mayor Zimmer and Mayor Healy the ability to opt out of civil service and to manage your municipalities like a business, not to be hamstrung, not to be able to release people that aren't doing their jobs any longer just because of civil service. We need civil service reform to give them those